Going live. Greetings, world, and greetings, Seven Spot. It is a treat to come to you today. I'm just so happy because I'm going to be speaking to somebody tomorrow, right now. And the reason I say that is because right here in Vancouver, British Columbia, it is now, what is our date? It is the 1st of September. And where we're speaking to today is we're going to be speaking with Jake Evans Scott in Wellington, New Zealand. And of course, it's tomorrow there in the morning. It's 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in Vancouver, and 11 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to bring Jake in right now. Jake, welcome, and thank you for doing this with us.
Afternoon. It's all right.
Yeah. I always get a kick out of the fact that I'm speaking to people tomorrow.
Yeah, from the future.
Yeah, I'm speaking to somebody in the future. Listen, you were going, before we went on air, you were kind enough to tell me about a lot of the wonderful things that you've done with your kit. Now, yours is a special kit because I remember when I built my kit, I saved up all my shekels and I sent them off to the good people at Demon Motorsport, and they would just be kind enough to send it off to me, and I set about building my 7. But yours is a bit of a different story. Tell us about how you came into possession of your Leech S3.
So I just sold a long-term project car of mine that I'd had for about 10 or 12 years. And I had sort of on and off been looking for a 7 to build.
Yes.
And there are a few makers in New Zealand, Leech being one of them, Fraser's, Almac, obviously. There's quite a few. And a kit popped up on Trade Me, and it was a chassis that had been skinned, and it had all the body panels and all the fiberglass, and there wasn't a lot of photos of all the other bits that actually came with it. But the story I got was that a gentleman and his father had purchased it brand new in 1990. So 1990. It's quite, yep. So 30 years before I got it, they had purchased it, and they'd never built it. So it had been sitting as a long-term project, and Barry at the time, I believe, offered quite a few different levels of kit. You could buy everything from one that came with absolutely everything you needed to finish it, interior, you name it, to just a base chassis, I guess. But mine was a skin chassis with all the suspension pieces with it, and it had the rack and the diff that had been modified by Barry. Unfortunately, I was missing the front suspension wishbones for it, but as we're discussing off air, that's actually one of the components in New Zealand now to certify a car on the road that wouldn't have been compliant, because now they have to be made out of a slightly thicker material, and they have to be TIG welded, and then they have to be non-destructive tested for cracks.
Yes.
So the original ones wouldn't have been able to do that anyway, but Barry was kind enough to remake some in his jigs for me. So that helped the process tremendously, because I didn't have to work out from scratch how to get the right geometry. Not long after I bought the kit, I actually got in contact with Barry, and he looked through his ledger and said, yes, that I remember that car leaving here, and I sold it to this person. And he said, oh, send me the photos you have of everything you've got. And then he goes, oh, you're missing this and you're missing that. And he made 2 different types. So he made a Ford like Escort steering rack and front end, and he made the early ones were Triumph Herald. So mine uses a Triumph Herald front end. So
nice and light.
with a bit of help from the Triumph Car Club here in Wellington, I managed to get a few bits, because Triumph Herald bits are pretty thin on the ground now. And I was lucky that it came with quite a few of the small, harder to get pieces, such as the 100E Prefect pedal box. That's quite a hard piece to get now.
It is. Yep.
And the Triumph Car Club helped me out the steering column. and there's a few differences about how the kit was originally constructed and the original construction book, and how it's done now, because you can't certify for use on the road. So originally they would have plated and welded and extended the steering column. The Triumph Herald, luckily having a collapsible column, which works pretty well for me. But I had to buy. Barry actually told me a place that I could go buy universals that can be certified here, as well as a piece of universal shaft to make the piece that I need. So he's been really handy. Whenever I get stuck, I go, oh, well, how do you do this now? And he'll go, oh, well, you can do this or do that, or this is what I do. So he's been really great. So because my kit was never constructed, there's a lot of things that are
really
happening
what you
for the
call
first
customer
time.
service, I must say. After 30 years and the second owner on, that's really terrific.
I think Barry just has a real big passion for, getting them back on the road, and he's just happy to see another one on the road. And every now and then I'll message him and send him photos of where I'm at, or ask him a question or whatever, and he's always very forthcoming and helping me out.
Well, speaking of finding out where you're at, is your Leech Series 3 anywhere near where you're at right now?
Oh, yes, it is. Yep. Let me just try and flick here the other camera.
Because I'm going to do what I always do, is tell everybody it's not about me. It's always about you and your toy, and take myself out of the picture. So that's what I'm about to do. As soon as you can find your camera, looks like you've frozen in the picture there right now. So
hang on, it should be trying to.
That's the wonders of modern live streaming. Got a good picture of Jake here with a full set of headphones, trying desperately to get his camera to flip around to the rear camera mode.
Can you see it now?
I can see your smiling face. I put myself back into the picture temporarily. It seems like we do have a bit of a communication problem. If you'd like, that link that I sent you is still live. Why don't you exit out and come right back in, and I'll try to fill some space with what we're planning to do on a few future broadcasts. Does that sound okay with you?
Yep.
Okay. You just remove yourself and come on back in. Folks, thank you for sticking with us. Jake will be right back with us. He's just going to reconnect the link. But I just wanted to let you know, as far as future programming is concerned, tomorrow we're going to be doing something different. We're going to have a product display. It's not like the shopping channel, but it's going to be kind of like it. We're going to be exploring the wonders of polymers and carbon with David Lale at Classic Carbon. This is going to be fun, and I'd like to do a bunch of series with David, because it's not only about the product he's making, it's his story. He's got a very interesting story of how he got into this business. So we'll be exploring that tomorrow. And I'd like to, he makes so many different things. He would like to share with us some of not only the products he makes, but how you can maintain a good carbon product when it's on your car, and protect it so it's going to last a good long time. And he'll be doing some very short, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15-minute segments on 7 Spot from time to time. And I think it's going to be a big hit, because it's a narcotic for us, isn't it? It's carbon. We love carbon. In addition to that, I'm carrying on with it. Looks like we're getting Jake back into the stream. There we go. That looks lovely. And I'm hoping that you can hear me. Jake, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. All right. Why don't you take it from here? Because people didn't come to listen to me. They came to see your 7. So tell us about that engine, because we were chatting about that. Folks, that is a 20 valve Toyota that came out of a front wheel drive vehicle. Tell us what's going on there.
So I wanted to buy a Fraser E for the car, and basically the cheapest way possible for me to buy it was actually to I got offered a whole car. So I bought the whole car, got it towed to my workshop, and then set about over a weekend to remove the engine and basically anything that was salvageable off the car. So I took the wiring loom, all the engine ancillaries, the gearbox that came off of everything, and I basically put up on a group that hey, I've got this car. If anybody wants any parts off of it, let me know, and I'll sell them. So I ended up selling like the doors, the boot, a whole bunch of stuff. I had a guy from Ireland actually buy the front grille, the badge off of it, and a whole bunch of other like little pieces to get sent all the way over to Europe. So
that's amazing.
He was pretty stoked, and I think in the end, the whole engine, after I sold everything off the car, ended up costing me about $150.
Oh,
so
good on you.
That was basically the cheapest way to buy an engine, and a friend of mine, Phil Bradshaw, who has I think he has either at least 34 or 36. He sold me the gearbox that's in it, so it's got a I'll just bring it over. So it's got a 22 spline Toyota A86 T50 gearbox in it.
Yes.
Which is the later version, which is stronger than the earlier ones. So I put that in. That's pretty much, it's just a drop in. The bell housing pattern between front wheel drive and rear wheel drive is the same. It's running a standard Escort diff with a 4.4 ratio.
Yes.
So that mimics the factory Toyota A86 diff ratio, so it keeps the acceleration and everything nice and sharp. I actually there's another story with getting the diff. So when I got the diff, it had no diff center in it.
Yes.
So there was getting Escort parts now is quite hard to find because so many of them in New Zealand were converted to rally cars.
Okay. Yeah.
So the parts are all pretty hotly contested now, and they're quite expensive. So someone said, hey, talk to this guy. He's got a bunch of old Escort diffs and stuff sitting out the back of his house. So I rang this guy up, and he goes, yep, I've got one. I've got no idea what ratios they are. Just if you want one, come pick one out and take it away. So I was like, okay. So I went to this guy's house, and sure enough, in the backyard, he had about 4 or 5 diffs sitting there. And so I picked what I thought was the best one out of the bunch, and took it home, and I only really needed the diff head and the axles and stuff, because I had the car came with all the brakes that had all been reconditioned. So it was just as I said to you off air, it was missing strange bits and pieces. So like it had the diff housing and the brakes and everything, but I was missing the axles and the diff head, and obviously those had been lost along the way somewhere. So I pulled the diff apart and found that it had a 3.54 ratio diff head in it. Yes. And initially I was really disappointed, because that's obviously not the ratio I wanted. I either wanted a 4.1 or a 4.4 until someone told me that that was like the golden ratio for all the Escort guys. So I ended up selling the complete diff head for about $700, and I only paid $150. And so that paid for getting me the right ratio diff head, and it got me all the axles and everything else I needed. So that worked out really well.
You're a wheeler dealer. And look at
you've got to, you got to trying to find parts is pretty hard. So
Well,
you've
that's
got to
right.
sort of.
I'm looking at right now, and I'm looking at your Triumph brakes. Those are either Herald or Spitfire brakes. As I'm looking at them right now. Is that correct?
So these are actually they're Herald stubs, and they have a locally made adapter. So they actually run a conversion stub, which allows you to run the larger Triumph 2000 discs and calipers.
Oh, okay. I get it.
So it runs slightly larger brakes than a Herald initially would have.
Yep.
But the master cylinder is out of a Datsun. It's like a Datsun 310 Sunny sort of brake master, which is a pretty common one here. And the clutch master is out of a Toyota A86. So that pretty much bolts.
It looks very clean. I love that. That looks really good. And that's out of a which?
What? Sorry, the brake pedal
the master
box.
Cylinder and the slave the master cylinder.
That's out of a Toyota A86 for the clutch and a Datsun. We call it a Sunny over here, but a B310, I think it is.
Okay, got it. B310.
And so it's a pretty common one that gets used here. And then it's got the aero screen that's on it is made by Fraser's. So it's actually a Fraser's aero screen. I'll take the tape off of it.
Oh, it looks very sharp. I've not seen one of those before. That's nice.
The seats that are in it are just pretty much in there for mock up. They're out of a Lynx. So I might reupholster them or cut them up to get them to fit properly. And I do have a set of mini lights. The mini lights that are on the back are actually for the front, but my 13x7s that I have currently sitting in Auckland and in New Zealand at the moment. If anybody's reading the news, will know that Auckland's still in complete lockdown.
Yes.
We're quite lucky here that we are we're in what they call it level 3. So we're basically still got to work from home if we can, and but shops and other places can do online trading and do click and collect. So you can still drive through and get takeaways or do other things, which has been really lucky for me because this is a pretty much brand new garage.
Yep.
It only got completed about 3 weeks before we went into lockdown. And the outside that is, and then while we've been in lockdown, I managed to finish lining the garage and getting all the power and everything on, and getting some of my stuff moved over, which includes all the cars. They got moved over a couple of weeks before we went into lockdown, lucky enough. So while there isn't a lot of work for me to do at work at the moment, it's given me a lot of time to actually get my garage finished. So
nice and sorted. It does look
there's
really
been
nice.
a silver lining sort of to being in lockdown, I suppose. But it's been a bit hard because parts availability to do stuff is been quite limited.
Yeah.
And with Auckland, which is while Wellington is the capital city, Auckland is the largest city in the country. So with them still being in lockdown, they can't do anything. So some of the suppliers and stuff, it's quite hard to get anything out of.
Well, we're all in this mess together, and I got to say thank you. This is, I mean, it's a charmer. I'm looking at that. It's a beaut. What a beautiful car.
Yeah. As I said, I'm intending to run the original clamshells on the car.
Okay.
So while it doesn't have a traditional windscreen and such, sort of minimalist with the aero screen, it's going to be a traditional looking from the outside car.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the with the fiberglass having been in storage for so long, it does need painting. It's the gel coat and stuff's been scratched around, but I mean I have all the body panels for it. I mean the hood's over there. So and I have an aftermarket ECU and the loom for the car. So I mean it's not a terrible stretch to start the wiring on it to get it going, but I'm waiting on a few parts. I'd ordered some time ago a kit to mount the alternator on the exhaust side of the engine, because on the driver's side it fouls on the steering column. So I'll show you that actually. So this is a standard Herald column, and it runs to, so this here was made because you have to hit for certification here, you have to have pedal stops and return spring setup. So I added this piece in here, and that combines a hanger bearing for the steering shaft, and then I made this steering shaft here out of universal bits and pieces to couple the two together. So as I said, you couldn't certify the original method of the way they did it. And this here is actually it's off a Nissan GTIR. So originally Toyotas have a really big airbox plenum that won't fit under, and Phil, when he did his 20 valve conversion, he actually trimmed his up to fit in, but there's a company in Australia that make this adapter plate, so you can run a forward facing plenum, and with the aftermarket computer I've got for the car, you don't need to run the factory airflow meter or anything. It'll use a map sensor to sense the airflow.
Wow.
So it cuts down on some of the stuff that's needed, but as you can see, this is the brake pedal here that I had to get remade, and it's essentially thicker, so
it's a little bit thicker. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so I had to move normally this would sit with the brake master on the other side of
the firewall
bracket of the brackets.
But
because I had to move the pedal forward, it all has to sort of get moved forward, and it's really tight in there to do anything, as everybody knows. So, and as soon as you move one thing, it means that you have to move everything else. So that was quite a task to get done. It uses gas Lotus coilovers that were bought in for me by someone in New Zealand, because it was cheaper than me bringing them in myself. But yeah, that's about it. It runs a 4-link with a panhard rod. And this one, the panhard rod mount's reinforced, because that was one thing that Phil Brayshaw had experienced with his, that the factory panhard rod mount that was done originally, he had broken his. So he said to me, reinforce it. So I welded it, an extra brace on. But the car, as it sits, it steers, stops. It's got a handbrake. Everything basically works. It just doesn't drive at the moment. But I mean, it's just to get it to this point is a substantial amount of work, as everybody can appreciate.
And that was my next question. From receiving the kit and getting underway, how long has it taken you to get this far, in terms of not hours, just from month 1 to month where we are now? How long has it been?
So I bought the kit originally in, must have been about August last year. So yeah, probably about a year to get to this point.
Good for you.
And it's been one of those things of because I haven't had a garage that's been big enough at home to work on it. I have a workshop, so it's when I get time from home to go work on it. And again, hunting down the parts has been quite a big part of it, you know. And every time, you know, like the coilovers, for instance, I ordered those, and they were about 6 weeks from 6-7 weeks from order to receiving them, because they manufacture them and then they send them. So, you know, we're a long way away from everybody at the other end of the world. So, but we're lucky that we actually have quite a few producers here, like Fraser's. That's just a standard off-the-shelf aero screen for them that they produce in New Zealand. So I ordered it, and a few days later it was here. So, and like Japanese car parts here are pretty easy to get, and now there's a relatively good source for Triumph parts in New Zealand. There's a company that brings in a lot of Triumph parts.
Okay.
So getting tie rod ends and bushings, and because as I've gone along, I've tried to put as much new in as I can. So like the brakes, for instance, they're not new, but they were basically new, and I bought them as a complete conversion kit.
Yes.
But like all the bushes are new. The bushes you saw in the photos that you put up, they're actually the original bushes were Peugeot 504 suspension bushes, and you used to be able to go to any auto parts store and get them here 30 years ago. But now they're it's impossible to buy them new without bringing them in from the UK. But with the UK last year having such big lockdowns, you couldn't get any out of there. So Barry had mentioned to me, he said, there's RS Online, which is a electrical component seller. They have these bushes that are for like industrial motors.
Yes.
And he said the outer and the inner dimensions are correct, but you need to shorten them. And so there's photos of me using my friend's lathe before I bought my own one to shorten. I think there's about 26 of the same bushes are used in every suspension joint in the whole car. So there's things like that which do slow things down just by the fact that you have to, you know, substitute or get things in. Yeah.
Wow. What a project. I congratulate you. This is fabulous. Well, Jake, you've given us almost half an hour of time. So I'm going to bring myself back into the picture, if that's all right with you.
Yep.
And I just wanted to say, if you can just rotate the camera just so I can see your face. Uh-oh. There we go.
Try
yeah. There we go. That's perfect. Jake, I just wanted to say for all of us at 7 SWAT, thank you so much. This is absolutely fabulous. I'm speaking to you tomorrow, and I'm going to look forward to seeing tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow after that to see that wonderful project of yours coming and roaring to life. Please share that with us when that happens.
Yeah. Yep. As I said to you, I've got to hold progress for a little bit as I go away for a 3-month training course rather soon to go be a paid career firefighter in New Zealand. You have to go away and do 12 weeks of live-in course, and I've got my wife's due with our first child in February. So
well, congratulations.
Thank you. So that'll throw a bit of a spanner in the works, but now that I've got a pretty decent sized garage at home, that it shouldn't slow things down too much. Hopefully I'll still have a bit of spare time to come out and tinker.
Well, I mean, with that, I'm going to say, Jake, thank you so much. And
no worries, thank you.
Look forward to seeing you later.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, cheers for now.
All right, see ya.
You bet. Bye.